An Airbnb property used to be so easy, right? You threw a bed on the floor and somebody would book the place for like $1 million and you'd be like cash flow rich. Everybody was like, yes, I'm making so much money. But then in comes COVID, right? And then revenge travel. And then this time where everyone's like, oh, all my real estate should be on Airbnb. It's going to make way more cash flow. And then people were gobbling up real estate because of inflation. And now we've just got a bunch of real estate in the Airbnb space, right? We have oversupply for a lot of reasons. And not just because Airbnb's been easy money, but other economic factors have led people to buy up more properties and then put them into the short-term rental space. So now here you are with some properties that aren't making as much money as they used to. What do? Well, this video, I want to tell you what properties are going to make the most money in 2023 and probably on for a good long while. In an era of oversupply, all of the best and most profitable properties can be summarized by one word: novelty. And there's gonna be 3 areas of novelty I want you to focus on, and in this video I'm gonna teach you those. By the end of this video, you'll be rethinking your entire Airbnb approach. Let's go. Welcome back, YouTube world. My name is Sean. As you might know, I've been doing Airbnb for 8 years, been teaching it for roughly 6, and this is where you go to learn everything on how to run the business, because this is a business. Can I get a like and an amen? What I mean by novel is unique, different, something that's harder to recreate. We are going to dive into the 3 types of novelty in the short-term rental space, but let's first talk about why it's so important for us. See, hotels are very much different, but they compete with us directly. People can stay at a hotel. I'm staring at the W right here, and they've got how many hundreds of doors there. So what they can do is they can spend a bunch of money on making this beautiful bar, this beautiful pool, and then they can spend a bunch of money on marketing and build out a brand where people are searching to stay in Dallas. The W pops up in search. Because they have so many keys, there's this higher reward that comes with spending that money. If you tried to do the same thing, you try to put a bar in your house with a full-time bartender, that's not going to work. You cannot have enough guests to fund something like a bar. You can't have enough guests every night to fund something like an ad campaign. You have a one-to-one relationship with your property typically. Even myself with places that have 10 or 15 properties, it's really not price efficient to try to do some big marketing campaign to put myself on the map. You'd want to have a hotel. So there are advantages to short-term rentals and there are disadvantages. And one of the main disadvantages is you don't have the scale for a marketing campaign. You don't have the scale to build a bar or restaurant in your space. Right? It's that one-to-one relationship. This affects so much of your property, like how you should design it, what kind of experiences you should give, what your pricing strategy should be. And yes, this channel has been all about pricing strategy for years. I even did a recent webinar on how to do one with a $0 cleaning fee. You should check that out because Airbnb is pushing listings that have a $0 cleaning fee right now because of their whole PR fiasco where everybody's been mad at Airbnb about fees. That one's called my target price webinar. Check it out. The benefits of novelty here is if you can do something right once, you could be the one person getting booked because you're the one person who's cornered that market per se. If there's 10,000 listings in somewhere like Dallas and there's 10 or 15 super interesting listings, they will always get booked. There are inexpensive 2-bedroom properties here that are making $14,000 a month because they have a really interesting design style. And that's all they ever needed. And now these little 2-bedroom properties are popping. Design, case in point, is a good example of creating novelty. So let's jump in with that as to number 1. You need novelty in your design. But what does that mean, you might ask? Let's go deeper. You want contrast from your competition. That is why in one of my recent videos, I talked about why we are painting all of our walls dark. Now you'll see with your hero photo, the very first photo that anybody can see in your listing, if you go through map view and you're searching through your city, your listing pops up next to your competition. Everybody has one photo to represent themselves. Your one photo can either fall in line with everyone else's or pop in contrast against theirs. Now, a big brain move is to actually change your hero photo for the seasons, right? If you have an amenity that's a hot winter amenity, then you want to have that photo showing when it matters. But in the summer, if that amenity no longer matters, you take it off of your hero photo. You want your best photo forward at all times, and that can change. That might actually be the first time I've given you guys that advice for free. And with that, a lot of the advice that I give comes from like years and years of experience. I test it out on myself, and then I give it to my students usually first, and then they get to run with it. And then if it works out and it seems like it's safe enough for me to share, it'll come to you guys here. Now, my mentorship program is called Cracking Super Host, and most of the people in my program are hosts who already have properties. What I've noticed lately in the last 3 or 4 months because of the winter bust, a lot of hosts were underperforming and didn't know what to do with their listings, how to save themselves from losing money. And a lot of people have jumped into my coaching because their listings was just suddenly had empty calendars. And just so you guys know, I'm not just a rental arbitrage guy. I'm the guy who runs these businesses at scale, 150 properties. They run the same way, whether or not you own them. So the concept of novelty has been something we've been talking about for the last 6 months. The dark wall color is something that we've been talking about for the last 6 months. Creating unique artistic photos, artistic representation of your space to create novel marketing of your space is something that we've been talking about for 6 months. This concept of the hero photo is something that we've been talking about for a long while. So to bring this to a very basic level, if you painted your walls some extravagantly different color than your competition, and you did a photo that's not your typical wide real estate shot, you did something that's more akin to like a headshot using a portrait lens, something that's more zoomed in. These artistic style shots could get somebody to click on your space because they like the vibe that you're sending off that one photo. And the less representative that photo is of your entire space, the more it creates what we would call a curiosity gap. And that's why I do think one of the best photos for your hero photo is to have an outdoor photo if your outdoor is wonderful. Like if your yard is well manicured, you have a pergola or a cabana, you have a hot tub, you've got a pool, you've got, textured lawn with like gravel and grass and wood chip, or you have really cool landscaping, anything like that. Having an outdoor photo makes people curious to what's on the inside. You do want to leave enough of a curiosity gap in your hero photo that people click on your listing. Because for SEO, clicks lead to better ranking. The more clicks you get, the more that they're going to push your listing. That's one of the elements that's still very important in Airbnb's ranking system. Being novel in the way that you color your space and novel in the way that you photograph your space is one way to start getting clicks. But people still need to choose your space. And one thing that we're noticing is that people who haven't really committed to a full design, right? They've just got basic furniture. They've got this farmhouse design that they picked up from Ashley Furniture or something like that, and they just went with that, but they don't have any elements of a short-term rental in it. Those ones are getting left behind. Even the smaller listings are getting left behind. There's things that you can add in. I've got this plant mirror combination, and I'm actually going to be selling different decor combos here soon. We're actually testing out a website model before I can start giving you some of my cool decor combos. But this plant mirror combination that I do, I think has been really effective for bedrooms. Using little LED signs can be fun too. Plant walls are great as well. One of my students asked about designing a bachelorette style space, and what we found when we did market research was pretty basic. You just need places for women to do makeup, and you need an Instagram wall. And that's what people are booking. There's not a lot there. You want a cool space, but the amenities were really just makeup stations and an Instagram wall. To summarize the point, novelty is different than your competition. So what that will look like for you will be different. Something that I have set up here that might look like more of the same in Dallas might be really cool in a beach town because nobody else is doing it. Like the whole dark wall color. This might be really popular in New Orleans and everybody's doing it, but then you go to Denver and no one's doing it. So you need to do your market research and find out what your competition is doing in order to find out what they're not doing. And choosing to go your own way will set you apart from your competition and change this supply and demand bottleneck that you guys are going to be experiencing from oversupply. Because if 8,000 listings don't get booked, you just need to make sure that you don't get bundled in with that 8,000 listings. If you're one of the 2,000 or 3,000 listings that get booked, there's going to be a reason why. And being different is always a good plan for short-term rentals. Number 2 is providing a novel experience. Now, this is something that you may or may not have active control of. Like, for example, you can find a property that in itself is an experience, and that's going to be the move. Like the OMG collection on Airbnb shows like spaceships and tree houses and maybe a house that looks like a boot, something like that. And when I did market research for a part of the world, and I think it was somewhere near New Mexico or Colorado, we found that the only properties in this one small town, and I remember the town now, but I'm not going to tell you because I told my student to go there. This one small town has just a couple of properties that are crushing it, and none of the properties are good. But the bones of the properties were cool. They're like right at the foothills of like this desert mountain spot. And even though the properties aren't doing anything special, their furniture is trash, their photos are trash, the two properties have good bones. And these properties are making a ton of money because they offer an experience. Even though the host isn't doing anything else, but they had just the right property in the right spot, they're gonna make the money. I was thinking about putting buses on these overlooks, like over by Lake Mead, for example. That'd be really cool. There's this downward grade, and there's all these little spots that you probably could pull off and park. I'd need to get some land management group to give me permits or something like that to park them up there. But to have fully independent solar powered buses overlooking this river outside of Lake Mead would be super tight. That would be like an experience. Now, I do think that's why the glamping movement got so big, but you do need to recognize when you're pushing into a fishbowl, let's call it, that has a critical mass for size. There are people who love to backpack, there are people who love to road trip. So if you popped up properties off of Route 66, you're gonna get a certain amount of business for people that are road tripping Route 66. Now, if you pick spaces that are outside of urban locations, you might get some staycation traffic where people are leaving the city and they just wanna disappear for a little while. For example, Glen Rose is a couple of hours from Dallas, and one of my friends owns a house out there, and there's this exotic petting zoo over there, and people will go down there and stay for a weekend or a few days. There are staycation elements like that. Whether you decide to try try to do something that's like glamping, or whether you try to do like a suburban staycation or just a themed property, or if you try to find a destination where there's no good hosts but really good bonus for properties like I mentioned, just recognize that you'll be pushing into a market that has a certain size. You're not going to change the size of that market by adding your inventory. You're only going to be taking up share of a current existing market, so be careful. There could be ways that you can temporarily tap into providing a unique experience even with the very regular properties that you have. Like theming for holidays can be fun. I have students that'll set up Christmas decor for about 10 weeks of the year to try to get a pop from that whole Christmas element. Because people like it and there's so few hosts that'll go that direction, it'll give them a temporary advantage in the market. And this segues into the third area of novelty. This is one that you can control in large. Sometimes you can't with arbitrage because you can't change the space that you rent, but you can still choose spaces that have these things. You can have novel amenities. After all, what is a short-term rental? It's a place to sleep, it's a place to make memories, it's a place to move on from. So really, it's all about the experience at the end of the day, and competitive, underserviced novel amenities are where you can go. Now, when I teach my students to do market research, we're looking for one thing called underserviced amenities. And there's a way to, for free, without using something like AIRBNB, to find an intersection of amenities that should exist with property types but don't, where a city should have more EV chargers and hot tubs and pet friendly or whatever and combinations thereof, but there's just no listings that have the right combinations of amenities. See, 5 years ago, if you simply had a hot tub, you were cooking. If you simply had a pool, awesome. If you simply had a gym. But now as we move on and there's more supply, we need combinations of amenities and not just singular ones. If you had a beautifully manicured front yard and an electronic charger for a Tesla that is visible from the same photo in your driveway, you can show, hey, this place has got a great yard and it's got an electric charger. This would be a way to have a slight combination of amenities shown in your hero photo. And there's one that's just been around for years that no one's still taking advantage of, which is ADA accessible spaces. There's such an undersupply of spaces that are available for people in wheelchairs, people on crutches, people going through medical issues, that if you simply got your space to level 1 ADA compliant, you could see a 400% increase in the search ratio for your property compared to others. It would be a huge land grab that you can take advantage of. And this is where getting started in this industry could be really cool, because what's happening is that people have committed to a line of value offering. Let's imagine Nokia, right? They make certain types of phones. Or let's imagine Sears, they've got a certain department store model, and they commit to a line because they've been making enough money with that line. They start to build systems to really serve that. And now that they've committed to a structure of value creation, it's gonna be a little harder to change. So as you do market research right now, and you see what everybody's doing, you're gonna see more of the same, you're gonna see people failing, you're gonna see a few people doing it right and making some money. You can get inspired by the ones that are being different and doing it right. You could become inspired to be brave enough to do a design that no one else will do. You'll be able to find these combinations of amenities that people don't have because they already committed to their spaces are done, and you can find gaps in the market and create beautiful spaces that no one else is doing. And a good example of finding a gap, if you find a property that sleeps 14 people, that they committed to this beautiful design style, right? Something kind of wonky, outlandish, and fun, and it's doing really well, why not take that same design theme, but just do it for a studio where it can sleep 4 or 5 people, but it's way more price affordable? That person spent a lot of money proving that a design worked, and now you don't have to take the risk, right? So you can spend a little bit more on your design, but knowing that it's already working with a group of people, and just do it with a different property type that's non-competitive to them. Your property that sleeps 4 or 5 is not going to compete with the property that sleeps 14. So you can do a nearly identical listing, just a junior version of it, and you get to win. That almost seems like cheating, doesn't it? Being cost-effective, price-efficient is always going to be one of these final stands for running your hospitality business. Because I'm going to tell you guys this again. This is not a real estate endeavor. Everything that we just talked about has nothing to do with real estate itself. You understand that? But you could buy a property if you want, or you could rent it, or you can co-host. But what color you paint the walls, what amenities you have, who cleans your home, what your pricing strategy is, all these things are active business management like fundamentals. These are hospitality fundamentals. I'm teaching a webinar on hiring housekeepers. And the reason why this is important is you might have a house that it costs you $200 to clean because some third party is cleaning it for you. If you could have your own housekeepers at $14, $15, $16 per hour, you can cut that cost to 30%. It could cost you $60 to $70 to clean the same house that somebody's charging you $200 for. And that $140 per turn savings at the end of a month where you do 6 turns gives you over $800 of savings per month, which is $800 of extra profit per month. At 155 doors, we have a staff count about 30 something. and we have a lot of housekeepers, and they're making $14 to $17 per hour. And that allows us to clean most of our places for about $25 or $30 per clean, where everyone else is charging $50 or $60. And this is a huge cost reduction. So if you want to learn how to hire a housekeeper, how to train them from scratch, how to manage them, and operate at half your housekeeping cost, then I will be hosting this webinar March 21st, a Tuesday. It will be a day-long boot camp, and you will learn everything that you need to know in order to hire and train and maintain a housekeeping team that will reduce your costs by 60 or 70%. The link is in the bio. I'll see you there. And P.S., if you have any questions on how to run a profitable short-term rental business, feel free to ask in the comments. As you guys know, I've built 4 7-figure businesses. A lot of what I can teach you about how to run short-term rentals stems from another industry that I've experienced in one of my other business endeavors and one of my many failures. I failed my way here too, guys. And that's part of the learning process. We need to try things, we need to fail, we need to learn, we need to do it again, we win, and then we celebrate with ice cream. So thank you so much for watching this video, and as always, guys, I'll see you on the other side.